It's Sunday school in October, in spooky October. And here I've got an old photograph. I mean, pretty old. Uh, Now that's me, okay? I, at the beginning of a magical retirement. Believe it or not, I'm still on a magical retirement, even though I'm probably holding a cup of wine there. There was a party thrown by our dearest friends, Doug and Karen James, and they threw a party. Come as your favorite hero or villain. And as I had shaved my head, or Constance shaved it for me, in preparation for my magical retirement, I decided, hey, I'll just freshen up my shaved head, put on a floppy bow tie, and go as both my favorite hero and villain, Aleister Crowley. But the guy right next to me there, in the Green Hornet costume, is David P. Wilson. Now, I talked about David the other day, and that's sort of the springboard for today's Sunday school sermon. And the caption here is author with shaved head and noted diobolist S. Jason Black. Well, David, over the years, started writing books uh, with the great late publisher of Christopher Hyatt, uh, who gave me my start too. And I talked about David Wilson the other day when I was talking about black magic and pacts, because uh, David's sense of magical art was that of a 18th century French diobolist kind of thing. Now, all of that is in my book, My Life with the Spirits. And the David was one of the most talented scryers uh, that I've ever worked with. Uh, and he did enjoy and work with uh, uh, diabolic pacts and things like that. But he was a dear, dear friend and one of the funniest people we've ever known. Is a dear family friend. Our hearts were broken when his personal demons that manifested as alcohol abuse eventually took his life. And you can argue, all the demons took his life. Well, David would just love to hear you say that if he was alive, because but still, it's incredibly tragic. Anyway, now I wrote My Life with the Spirits, or at least it was first published. Let me see what the date of this is. Let's see, probably 1999. Okay, so that's when it was first. Oh wow, this is the one and only remaining copy showing the printer error uh, of the author name on page 3, Roman numerals. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing this right now. What did they do? Page 3 is ah yes, Lon Milo DuQuette. But I digress. When I did that show about black magic and pacts, which I think was just less than a week ago, uh, I got quite a quite a lot of views out of that one. I guess everybody wants to hear about black magic and packs. But I got several, and of course these shows are reposted on YouTube, and of course they start on Facebook and then go to YouTube. Um, and there were several people who were truly thoughtful enough to take the time to comment on it, and I appreciate comments. Uh, of course, my Cancerian feelings are hurt if the comments aren't undiluted praise, but I do appreciate someone at least taking the time to voice their opinions, especially if they're well thought out. And one person, I guess, misheard and thought I was talking about Robert Anton Wilson, and uh, of course, which I wasn't. I was talking about David P. Wilson. Uh, but he also brought up a point about uh, cautioning me about glamorizing black magic and pacts and the sacrifice of mice and things like that, which David did. Okay, and if I gave the impression that I was glamorizing that, because even while David was doing that, we did not, other than we just loved him as a person, did not support or subscribe to that uh, form of magical art expression. So I don't want you to get the idea that the DuQuettes are are mice sacrificers. As a matter of fact, au contraire. Uh, but anyway, it reminds me of that, and people find it. Some people find it hard to reconcile sort of the paradox of magicians who are dedicated to the great work uh, that would at least accept the friendship of people of every religious persuasion and every philosophical bent. I mean, people are people. You either love people or you don't, and so we had so much else in common with our dear friend David than we didn't. Uh, uh, Knowing David did, of course, enrich our lives, and the example of his life was simultaneously inspiring and tragically depressing, I guess. Anyway, when this first came out back in 1991 or shortly thereafter, uh, I was invited to speak at a Newport Beach. I guess it was like I don't know what you'd call it, but it was sort of a new age uh, weekly or monthly lecture series in Newport Beach. And I was asked to speak because My Life of the Spirits was uh, getting good reviews, and I was a local author, so they asked me to speak. And so I did. I went and uh, gave a lecture on just magic in general, Aleister Crowley in particular, and My Life with the Spirits. Uh, I plugged My Life with the Spirits. And I immediately got an email uh, from one of the attendees of that. And I kept it because I wrote a note back to him that I thought might be worth preserving. And I'm going to share it with you now as Sunday school. This is from a man who attended one of my talks in Newport Beach. He identified himself as a Christian and was very belligerent through the entire talk. I forgot to mention that too. There were groans and heckles during my talk, which is very rare. Okay, even in rough neighborhoods and rough venues, people are usually respectful, and this guy was an asshole. Dear Lon, I finished reading your book. Okay, all is forgiven. He bought the book. I guess that gives him permission to shoot his mouth off. But thank you for writing that, if you're listening. I just finished reading your book, My Life with the Spirits, and had a question. You do seem to believe in God and Satan. Now, that's sort of like the guy that jumped the gun and thought I was talking about Robert Anton Wilson instead of David P. Wilson before he tore into me for rat sacrifice. But I digress. You do seem to believe in God and Satan. Now, I don't know where in My Life with the Spirits that he got the idea that I believe in Satan, at least how he thinks of it. And you were taken aback on page 6, he quotes the page 68 through 70, when you thought that Aleister Crowley was a Satanist. Your quote is, in case I forgot, I may have been a wild and crazy heretic, but I sure didn't want anything to do with Satanism. Unquote. I know that different people interpret Crowley in different ways, and since you jumped on the OTO bandwagon after reading Crowley, I assume that you don't believe him to be a Satanist. There's all sorts of assumptions going on there. I don't know where to begin. I am, however, puzzled by the photo of you with S. Jason Black on page 134. There's no mention of the circumstances of your encounter with him other than the photo stating he is a, quote, diobolist. Why are you and him socializing after your previous comments about Satanism? Gotcha. And on page 101, you refer to trapping Orobas, the, quote, fiendish devil, in a triangle, as well as mentioning on page 93 that the 72 spirits of the Goetia are fallen angels. Do you not apparently associate the fallen followers of Lucifer with him? Satan appears to be a persona non grata, but this fellow, fallen angels are okay for you to conjure. What gives? Sincerely, name withheld. Okay, now remember I wrote this a number of years ago. I mean, well over 20 years ago. Okay, so even I was a much younger Lon when I wrote this response, and a much younger Lon when I was describing what was going on in the book that he is misquoting. Dear name withheld, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Please forgive me if this sounds rude, but I'm not sure you've carefully read My Life with the Spirits. Otherwise, I can't imagine why you would feel the need to ask these questions. The first thing I ask you to remember is that the Lon Milo DuQuette, who so many years ago voiced the opinion, I may have been a wild and crazy heretic, but I sure didn't want anything to do with Satanism, unquote, was an uneducated, ill-informed, judgmental, and ignorantly superstitious young man in his 20s. I did not realize at the time that the, quote, Satanism, unquote, that I so hysterically feared when I harbored those thoughts was a figment of my imagination. I assure you that today, if I still thought there was a, quote, God, unquote, and a, quote, devil, unquote, as defined by the Roman and Orthodox Christianity and by the majority of modern evangelical, quote, thinkers, unquote, if I still believed in the interpretation of Scripture that posits original sin, the fall of man, an all good God of wrath, and an all evil devil, if I still believed that the human soul was a thing created to be bullied, blackmailed, and browbeat into submission to a particular doctrine, theory, myth, or narrow spiritual worldview, or else be doomed to eternal torment, then I most certainly would run like the wind away from anything that even sounded like Satanism. Yes, I most definitely believe in God. But I'm pretty sure my concept of God is wildly different than yours. I believe in a God who is so big it can't have an opposite. If that point of view is blasphemous, heretical, and satanic by your definition, then you might be inclined to mislabel me a Satanist. No, I don't believe Crowley was a Satanist as the term is commonly understood, commonly misunderstood. Yet it is obvious his work and philosophy are incomprehensible to many people, and so because of their inability to find an accurate term, they mislabel it satanic. My understanding of fallen angels, gods, and demons is also obviously much different than yours. Perhaps if you'd reread the chapter in My Life with the Spirits on the evocation of Oribos, you would understand that the true nature of Goetic evocation could be easily discussed in the vocabulary of psychology. Try to understand in what context I use the term fiendish devil. Who is it I'm really talking about? Is it only the art form of evocation that appears to smack of a medieval worldview? I think so. Because I wrote that as a statement. I'll reread it. It is only the art form of evocation that appears to smack of a medieval worldview. Finally, why on earth would you be puzzled by the photos of me with S. Jason Black? Constance and I have a broad assortment of personal friends and professional colleagues, physicians, politicians, writers, magicians, yogis, filmmakers, real estate brokers, psychologists, psychiatrists, sorcerers, publishers, magicians, dancers, artists, radio talk show hosts, left-wing activists, recording artists, Christians, Jews, atheists, Thelemites, Buddhists, pagans, and even people who call themselves Satanists. And yes, even S. Jason Black, who is an old and dear friend of the family. We love these people. We socialize with them whenever we can, not because they describe letter for letter to our beliefs or spiritual worldview, but because they are brilliant and unique individuals from whom we learn and who learn from us. Individuals who tolerate us as we tolerate them. We socialize with them because when we do, we enrich our minds, our souls. We make ourselves part of a society that peacefully brings together people with different ideas, different tastes, and different gods, rather than a society whose religion seems to be a poisonous preoccupation with keeping people separated. I hope this has been helpful. Now, fuck you. Love is the law, love under will. Sincerely, Lon. And that's where we'll end Sunday school today. It's a rainy day. It's going to be a rainy day here in Sacramento, and we need it. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Until then, continue to be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.